What's up, everybody? It's Diego Call from punchdrunksports.com, bringing you another episode of This Week in Soccer. There's been a big week with a lot of news, so I'm going to give you the lowdown of what I think are some of the biggest stories. Starting off with the FIFA presidential elections. Gianni Infantino has been elected as FIFA president. Now, for those of you who are in the know, FIFA is one of the most corrupt systems in sports right now. You know, Sepp Blatter, the former president, has been caught with bribing. He's been caught with selling World Cups based on bribery. You know, there's been money transferred to mysterious accounts all around the world. It's just ridiculous. So the guy's finally been caught. He's been sent down. Platini, who was the leader of UEFA, which is the second biggest organization in soccer, he's also been caught and suspended for 6 to 8 years based on allegations of corruptions and things like that. So we have the two biggest leaders both caught with fraud and have been suspended. Now, Gianni Infantino, for those from what I've heard, from journalists, people that know him, he's an honorable man and he's a football man. So allegedly, he's gonna do what he can to try to get FIFA, which is obviously the leading organization in the world when it comes to soccer. He's gonna try to get things back to the way they should be. But I mean, realistically, if you look at the organization, when something is corrupt from top to bottom, there's been so many people suspended, so many people caught. It's not going to be easy to fix something like that. It's going to take a lot of time. Whether Infantino is the right man to do this, I don't know. We'll find out. I have my doubts, though, that one person really can get in there and clean things up, but we'll see. Hopefully he can, and hopefully the sport can be clean again. Second I want to talk about is Antonio Conte possibly signing for Chelsea. At the game between Bayern Munich and Juventus, Inter in last week, Antonio Conte was present, and he was there with Chelsea's sporting director. Now, the news over the past few days has been that Conte has signed for Chelsea and obviously will take over this coming summer. If this is true, I think it's a really good move from Chelsea considering the options that there are for open managers. Because I think Conte is he's a really good coach. We saw what he did with Juventus. He took a team that wasn't quite at the top level and he took them through very smart management, very smart buying. He took a team like that to the very top. They didn't get far in the Champions League, but they did get to the last 16 and the quarterfinals. And he put together the base of what Juventus is now and what they were last season, which got them to the Champions League final. He's maybe not the best manager around, but he's a manager with a lot of enthusiasm. He's a coach that brings a lot of passion, and he's definitely a guy who can inspire his players to play hard. And I think is a really good signing for Chelsea. Next up, I want to talk about the Europa League draws. There's some really, really big games in the competition this time, which is surprising considering I personally don't usually watch the competition. But, Manchester United are in it this year, so I've been paying a little bit more attention. And all you have to do is look at the quality of teams that are there. You have Borussia Dortmund, who are second in the Bundesliga. You have Tottenham, who are right there fighting with Leicester to win the league. You have Man United, who are obviously one of the top teams in the world, even though performances this season haven't been great, but they are building a pretty good run lately. You have teams like Sevilla, you have teams like Valencia. There are a lot of really good teams out there, and it should be really interesting to see. My personal favorite tie that's been drawn is Manchester United versus Liverpool. Obviously, the biggest rivalry in English football, one of the biggest rivals in all soccer. And it's going to be really fun to see those two go head to head in two ties. I do see United going by just based on the fact that lately they have been on a better run of form. Liverpool, although they are improving under Klopp, they still have a lot of weaknesses in just about every position. So I think United should be able to pull it out and get to the next round, but we'll see how that goes. Also, a big game to see, two big games, is Tottenham versus Borussia. The two best teams in the tournament, by far the most solid teams in the tournament. Realistically, this could have been a final, and it's going to be really, really fun. It's going to be a treat to see two games of two teams of that quality. Also, there are some derbies, but there's Valencia versus Athletic Bilbao. That's going to be a pretty good game. There's Bayern Leverkusen versus Sevilla. There are a lot of really good games going on, and it should be a really interesting competition from here to the end of the league, and to the end of the tournament. Next up, I want to talk about the Premier League. There were a couple of really big games. Obviously, Leicester, they needed a win to bounce back after the Arsenal loss. You had Tottenham, who definitely needed a win to keep themselves in the running, and most importantly, keep Leicester under pressure, keep Arsenal under pressure. And that's exactly what they did. Tottenham got a big win, fighting back from a 1-0 down to end up winning 2-1. You got Leicester, who also got the win. So they're still keeping themselves right at the top. And what happens? Arsenal on Sunday, they needed to get a win against Manchester United, who, if you look at the players that are on there, Arsenal should have won the game. I mean, you look at it, by far they had the better team. Obviously, United have 12 injured players, 12 starters that are out, 12 in the of their starters and their bench. 12 players are out, so they're bringing in the youth players, and what an impact these kids have had. Marcus Rashford, 18 years old, has gotten four goals in 2 games. It's really, really impressive. He's sort of reminiscent of Wayne Rooney when he was 18 years old. In fact, Wayne Rooney was 18 years old in 120 days, just like Marcus Rashford was when he played against Arsenal. So they both had really, really good Premier League debuts at the same exact age. Could Rashford become the next Wayne Rooney? I don't know. Obviously, it's early to see, but there's definitely a lot of potential in that kid, just from the way that he dominated Laurent Koscielny, who Arsenal fans love to argue is world class and is one of the best Premier League defenders of all time, which obviously isn't true. He's a really good defender, but he just can't compete with Rio Ferdinand and Tony Adams and players like that. I mean, come on, let's just be honest. And City didn't play; they were playing in the Carling Cup final. So Arsenal really needed to get this win, and what they do what they always do. They choked. Man United, the kids, they beat them 3-2. Realistically, it was a very deserved result. Arsenal did not go in there and deserve the win. This is what Arsenal do every single season. They look like this is their year, and then they blow it. They get to the end. They start off really strong. They get to the end, and they blow it every single year. Why? Because they never really improved their squad. This summer, what they do, they bought Petr Cech, a goalkeeper. I mean, realistically, what is a goalkeeper? Although Petr Cech is great, and he has won them points this season, but when you have a team that isn't that competitive, I mean, they are competitive, but they never get to the end. I mean, how do you expect the same players that finished, I think, 3rd last season, how do you expect them to win the league? What are they going to do differently? Sure, young players get better, but still, you look at them, they needed a good striker because Giroud just can't cut it. Walcott cannot cut it. Welbeck, although he's good, he's always injured. They needed a main striker, and they definitely need someone to cover in midfield because Flamini can't cut it, and their defense clearly isn't that great. I mean, Mertesacker wasn't out, but realistically, you see what Gabriel did, and I mean, neither Gabriel or Per Mertesacker are that great. So, I mean, they needed some new players, and they didn't get them, and just like every other season, they're not going to win the league. They're going to get to the end, they're going to fall apart, and they're going to drop off. I mean, they still may go on to win it, but realistically, I don't think they will. I just don't think they will. I mean, Leicester don't look like slowing down. Tottenham definitely don't look like slowing down. They look like they're gonna fight to the very end. I would say that Tottenham at this point, if Leicester do start to drop off a bit, I would say that Tottenham are the favorites to win the league, which is pretty good. I'm more than happy to see one of those two teams win it. They never do. We're used to having these major clubs with huge money, winning, and it would be great to see one of these two teams finally get something. Tottenham haven't won it in like 55 years. It would be really, really good to see that, especially considering how modern day soccer works. Whoever has the most money wins, and it would be really, really good for the sport and for the Premier League in general. Now, lastly, I want to talk about Manchester City beating Liverpool in the Carling Cup. This isn't exactly the biggest cup. Obviously, when it comes to finals, this isn't the biggest one, but it is silverware mid-season, which is something that can really, really push a team forward. And Manchester City, above all teams, needed a big win, something that can spur them on, push them forward in the closing months. They definitely needed to get something out of this. And, having recovered some big players and coming up against a team that not too long ago beat them 2-0, they definitely need to change tactics. That's exactly what they did. Manuel Pellegrini made his team less easy to break down, let's put it that way, on the counterattack. And sure, the game wasn't exactly as entertaining as the 2-0 win for Liverpool, but at the same time, Manchester City looked like a much better team. They were much more solid, and overall they were harder to beat down. Sure, it was a close game. It went to penalties. Mignolet didn't block any of Mignolet made some great saves throughout the game, but when it came to the penalty shootout, he couldn't do anything. Caballero, he stood his ground. He blocked a couple shots. At the end of the day, City won the Carling Cup, and realistically, when you see the players that are on the pitch, they really should have won that. Maybe not comfortably, just based on how good Klopp is as a manager, but realistically, they were the much better team on paper, and they really should have gotten the win, and they did. So hats off to them for getting the first silverware. I'm not a big City fan, as you can imagine, but whenever a team does win something, you have to give it to them. Lastly, I almost forgot about this, but this is something I want to touch on. Neymar has allegedly signed a new deal at Barcelona, making him the second highest paid player at the club. This is obviously not very, very shocking, but Neymar, for over the past year, has pretty much been constantly been linked to transfers outside of Barcelona. And realistically, when I think about it, it's like, why would he ever leave Barcelona? I mean, look at what he has. He has by far the best team in Europe. Arguably, maybe Bayern Munich can keep up with them. Real on their day can keep up with them. But realistically, they're by far the best team on their day. When Barcelona are clicking on full cylinders, there's nobody that can touch them. I mean, he has a pretty good keeper. He has solid defense. He has a great midfield behind him. And obviously, he has Messi and Suarez beside him. Why would he ever leave a team with that kind of potential where he's guaranteed to win titles? He's guaranteed to win probably 2 or 3 more Champions Leagues, not counting last season. I mean, just before Messi retires, Messi's 30 now, 29, 30, something like that. I mean, he's still got a few good years in him. Suarez is also firing on all cylinders. So this team looks like they can go on to win 3, maybe even 4 more Champions Leagues with the same team. It's not going to be easy, obviously, and it depends also on how much longer Messi can go on, and plays like Iniesta and things like that, Piqué, but when you look at the team, it's like, why would he ever leave? Like, he was especially linked to Man United. Like, why would he ever go to a team that's going through a period of turmoil when really he has the perfect team? Why would he go to PSG when, sure, he could be the number 1 player at PSG, but you see that, you see PSG, they always struggle. They don't have that team. They don't have a solid team like a team like Barcelona does. They're sort of like Manchester City. PSG is sort of like Manchester City. There are a lot of really, really solid individuals, but as a team, they just don't perform. Sure, they win in the French league, but come on, I mean, there's no competition in that league. So, I mean, Neymar, in my opinion, has made the perfect choice staying at Barcelona because realistically, once Messi does retire, he's going to be the number 1 player in the world because Cristiano Ronaldo is also older than Messi. You have to take that into consideration. So eventually those two will retire or their form will drop off a bit. And that's when Neymar will almost, undoubtedly take over as the best player in the world and win, I don't know, maybe 3, maybe even 4, maybe even more than Messi, Ballon d'Ors. And we'll see, I think that the best thing he could do is stay at Barcelona for as long as he can. And if he does want to experience a different league, do that later on in his career, maybe when he's like 27, 28. But for now, stick at Barcelona, develop to the best of his ability, win as much as he can, and then just test himself somewhere else. I think he does have all the potential in the world. I mean, you look at the players that could maybe compete with him once Ronaldo and Messi retire, who can compete with him to be the best player in the world and win the Ballon d'Or. I mean, Gareth Bale, James Rodriguez at Real, players like that, maybe Marco Reus, players like that. But, I mean, realistically, Gareth Bale and James Rodriguez, at the moment, they play at a Real Madrid side where there's 3 or 4 players in the starting lineup, James, Benzema, Ronaldo, and Bale, that are all, sort of those kind of players that a team works for, and they finish the dirty work. And it's kind of hard to have 4 players like that in the starting lineup. You have 4 guys that are superstar attacking players who, all through their careers, before all being together at Real Madrid, we're used to having the team working for them, not for them having to work for somebody else. You see when Real, there's Benzema, who does work well with Ronaldo, but you see James, you see Bale, they're not exactly their best when they have to work to get Ronaldo the ball. Because Ronaldo, he will complain if he doesn't get the ball. If you shoot and don't pass the ball to him, he will complain. And with the amount of power that Ronaldo has at the club, that's not what you need. That's a good way to get yourself kicked out. You see Bale, he's constantly being criticized. He's constantly being linked out. James Rodriguez, the same thing. You look at Barcelona, you have those front 3, but realistically, Messi is the number 1 guy. Neymar and Suarez are equal to being the number 2 and number 3, but Messi is the number 1. So they always know that Messi, he's the guy that makes the decisions. He's the guy that gets the ball in the important moments. He's the guy that you pass to. Ronaldo, he is that at Real Madrid, but a lot of times when you have these guys like James who have huge egos, I don't know about James, but definitely Bale, who have huge egos. It's hard for these players to work at the best of their abilities when they're always in conflict amongst each other, to see, to try to be the central player at the team. And that's what I think Neymar has to his advantage at Barcelona. That right now Messi is the number 1 guy, so it's not likely he's going to win the Ballon d'Or. But once Messi does leave, he will be the central focus of Barcelona for years to come. And Barcelona, They have a great youth system at La Masia, and I don't see why he would ever want to leave Barcelona, especially right now where Barcelona is by far the best team in the world. They have been for probably the past 6 or 7 years at this point, since 2008, 2009. So why would they ever want to leave? Why would a guy like him ever want to leave when he's at the beginning of where his potential is really starting to be realized. He's like 22. He's got so much time to win trophies and just develop as a player. Play with guys like Neymar and play with guys like Messi and play with guys like Suarez. Develop his craft to the best of his abilities, and then you can see him blossom into probably the best player in the world. Maybe even one of the best players we've ever seen. Time will tell, but I think he has all the potential in the world, and I would love to see what he can do. I think a few years ago, I didn't particularly care for the guy because he was always diving. Now he does obviously dive, but he does it a lot less, and his talent's just undeniable, and he's really fun to watch, and I love watching it. So that's about it for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, check out punchdrunksports.com for all your sports and comedy needs. Listen to the podcast, and see you guys next time. Bye-bye.